Welcome, young explorers. Come on in, gather around. As your guide for today's explainer, I'm inviting you to journey with me into a place that is literally older than thrones, deep within the ancient valley known as the Verdant Scar. Today, we're going to witness a truly pivotal moment in history, the exact moment the masters of the living earth tested the very first spark of human raw power. You see, when humanity first awakened its raw magical potential, the world didn't just magically become safer, it became louder. And the oldest forces of our world, the rivers, the roots, the stones, they needed to know if this new human fire was going to be a warmth we could all gather around or a devastating wildfire that would consume the whole shebang. So, prepare yourselves, because the lessons learned in this valley are absolutely crucial for your own self-discovery today.
Here is our syllabus for today's ethical examination. We'll start with the premise. The Earth awakens. Then we'll cover Ilyan's trial, the root, Sela's trial, the scarred wood, Mira and Tomas, the self, and finally, the resolution, a new hearth.
Now, before we really get going into the Verdant Scar, we have to lock down the core virtues of our lesson today. The crucial point is this: true power isn't about dominion. It's about mastering our own egos. When you possess great ambition or talent, the instinct is often to just force your will upon your surroundings, right? But as we'll learn from the natural masters, transforming your force into actual life-giving responsibility requires absolute restraint and a deep, grounding humility. And this brilliantly illustrates the clash we all face internally. On one side, we have raw human intent, which is fast, eager, ambitious, and basically always seeking control. Contrasted with that, we have ancient earth laws, patient, cyclical, purposeful, and enduring. This isn't just a clash of magic, you know? This is the restless push of our immediate desires versus the deep, patient wisdom of natural cycles. To survive, early humans had to figure out how to bridge these two completely different realities. Picture this: the first human circle has gathered at the edge of the Verdant Scar. They arrived completely without weapons because, well, the Earth hadn't asked for steel. What's fascinating here is exactly how they were called. The summons didn't arrive as some booming voice in the air. Instead, they felt a pressure right beneath the bone, like a tremor running all the way from their heels to their hearts. The ground wasn't angry with them. It was listening. It was calling their restless potential to face the ultimate judgment of the living earth. Let's dive right into part one, the premise. The Earth awakens. The Green Tribunal has assembled to judge this brand new human fire. We aren't talking about kings sitting on golden thrones here. We're talking about the master of forests, the master of beasts, the mistress of seasons. And standing among them, not above them, which is honestly an incredible lesson in humility all by itself, is Ilyan Marr, the master of all natural power. He sets the stakes for the humans. He tells them straight up that their awakening without permission isn't a crime, but it is a real danger. As he says, a flame begins without permission, but if it refuses its limits, it becomes ash. He's reminding us that an unbridled talent or emotion that refuses boundaries will inevitably destroy itself. The Earth isn't going to cage them. It's going to test if they can actually choose restraint while remaining free. Moving right along to part two, Ilyan's trial, the root. Through this next trial, a young man named Ilyan Marr has to learn the absolute hardest lesson of them all: choosing restraint over domination. I really want you to ask yourselves this right now. As students of nature and self-discovery, what do you do when bending something to your will feels dangerously easy? When you have the talent, the strength, or even the words to dominate a situation completely effortlessly, should you? Let's see how Ilyan handles this exact temptation. A massive internal shift is happening within Island. The Master of Roots presents him with this tiny, fragile root and challenges him to command it to grow. Island's raw power just flares up, super eager to prove humanity isn't small. For one breathless moment, he realizes he could easily force it upward into a spear, just bend it entirely to his whim. And it terrifies him because it feels so incredibly easy. But he stops. He completely refuses. He realizes that just because he can force the root to grow doesn't mean he has the right to. By closing his hand and leaving the root to its own natural cycle, he learns that restraint is a profound form of strength. Human raw power becomes monstrous the second it mistakes possibility for right. All right, part 3, Sela's trial, the scarred wood. Now, this trial is a really deep examination of how we treat trauma and brokenness, both in ourselves and in the people around us. Sela's specific magical gift has always answered to fractures and weaknesses. The Master Forest leads her to a tree that was split by old fire and basically asks her what she's going to do with a crack. Notice her choices here. She could use her power to conquer the tree, splitting it entirely. Or she could magically force the bark over the rot, erasing the scar to make it look superficially whole. But Sela realizes that pain isn't a door for conquest, nor is it some shameful thing to be magically erased. Instead, she places her palm against the wood and simply lets her power listen. She respects the scar as a teacher. The tree shudders, not fully healed, but steadied. It's such a powerful psychological lesson for all of us. If you have the power to read wounds, use it to protect what those wounds have actually taught. Next up, part 4, Mira and Tomas, Reflections and the Wind. Our next two students dive incredibly deeply into personal growth, really exposing the perilous traps of our own internal coping mechanisms. Think about this deeply, my young explorers. When laughter fails, when distraction no longer works, and when the world flat out refuses to be light, how do you sit with the heavy, unvarnished truth of your own grief? Well, Tomas Reed had to find out the hard way. Tomas Reed used his raw power of joy and humor as a shield. It kept hostile forces at bay, sure, but it was also exactly how he avoided his own dark memories. The Master of Winds simply stops the air around him. The wind refuses to move, making the valley feel intolerably heavy. Tomas tries to laugh it away, tries to use his lightness like a blade to make his pain ridiculous, but absolutely nothing works. Stripped of his toxic shield, Tomas undergoes a massive, mature shift. He takes one honest breath in that heavy air. He admits that some things simply aren't funny. And it's only when he stands beside his grief without mocking it that the wind returns, not as applause, but as mercy. Joy, he learns, only becomes holy when it can sit honestly with sorrow. Similarly, Mira of the Broken Mirror faces the Mistress of Seas at a lake that flatly refuses to lie. You see, Mira's power lived in false selves and shattered reflections. The lake shows her 1,000 possible versions of herself: a tyrant, a saint, a coward, a savior. Overwhelmed, her first instinct is to shatter the water to avoid making a choice. Because, hey, if everything is broken, she never has to be truly known, right? But natural water doesn't attack. It simply waits. She bravely accepts her fractured self, whispering that she could become any of them if she stops choosing. The 1,000 faces fade into just one, her own. She learns a beautiful lesson here. A broken mirror becomes wise when it remembers that reflection is not destiny. And that brings us to part 5, the resolution, a new hearth. Now we reach the climax of our story. As demonic crowns from afar try to poison the students' minds with whispers of ego, attempting to twist their interpretations of all these trials, the living earth forms a hollowed clay hearth.
Oriel Meridian asks them if their fire can accept a shape without becoming a slave to that shape. As the humans step in, all their distinct powers clash. Sela's fracture sight, Ilyan's refusal, Thomas's joy, Mira's reflection, Nadir's silence, Brann's force. What's absolutely crucial here is that they don't magically blend into one perfect, uniform light. No way! They remain wonderfully uneven. But when one flame flares too high, another member of the circle steps up to balance it, not through command or suppression, but through supportive presence. The demon's whispers completely fail because they find no isolated wound left to exploit. The humans turn their wild, chaotic power into a life-giving, communal new fire.
When the hearth finally cools, the earth names the ultimate cost of using our talents in a beautiful covenant. Listen to this. If you break, repair. If you burn, feed. If you silence, release. If you reflect, choose. If you laugh, mourn when mourning is due. Natural power, the masters explain, isn't totally innocent. Storms still kill and beasts still hunt. But natural power operates in cycles of return. The masters are telling humanity that true power demands absolute, undeniable responsibility for what comes after its use. It's just an incredible framework for how we should all wield our own personal strengths today. And this perfectly leads to the culmination of the trials. To seal the covenant, the humans are asked to choose a seed. They outright reject the seeds of golden abundance, the seed of survival through famine, and even the pale seed of magical power that requires no soil. Instead, they ask for a humble, completely ordinary brown seed, one that requires work, weather, and community. They plant it in the cooled ash of the hearth. They all lend a tiny piece of their power to it, gently. And from the ash, a single green shoot breaks through. It doesn't signify some massive mastery over nature. It signifies something much, much deeper to the masters. Simple, enduring continuance. It's a remarkably hopeful future reliant on shared risk.
As we close out this explainer and you step out of the Verdant Scar back into your own lives, I want to leave you with this thought. We all have raw fire inside of us, right? Our talents, our passions, our drive. So, how will you balance your inner fire with the ancient, patient laws of the world around you? Are you genuinely prepared to nurture the relationships and environments that your ambition touches? Keep this question with you, young explorers, and let it guide the spark you carry into the world. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.